Yes. Well, we are here, and today is a celebration. Happy anniversary, Tavis. I did not get
Hey.
you. I did not get you a gift, although I did think about it. I wanted to. I wanted to get you a gift because today
How
is
sweet.
our 1 year anniversary, and on
Woohoo.
top of that, it is episode 75, which I think is a huge accomplishment. So
Wow.
Uh, I had plans, about a month ago. I was like, it'd be cool if we did one live and we could do it on your boat and we can you know, have video and it would be really fun. And that fell through. So we will do something cool. We've talked about it enough. I think we have the resources. I would really like to interview the mayor of Frisco on location, maybe up at the Omni or something like that. That's like my big dream interview right now is him. And what's funny is because I saw his name this last week show up. He still actively sells houses. I did not know
Oh,
that.
wow.
But
Nice.
so I looked up the top sale, or not the top, I looked up all the sales in the Hebron zone because we're trying to do a fundraiser and I kind of wanted to know like what realtors were high volume in our area.
Yeah.
And so there were 762 houses that sold in the last year in the Hebron zone. And I looked up the top sales, and I think he actually had this top sale was a $6 million house up in Frisco, and he was the agent on it. I'm like,
Oh,
dang!
wow. Oh,
Not
wow.
only is he selling houses, he's selling for real houses. So, um, yeah, I'm gonna be jumping into that. But congratulations! I'm super proud. I remember being nervous actually asking you if you wanted to do this podcast because we were that at that time we were in the thick of Mapleton and Polk and all that stuff, and we knew each other. We had started eating lunch some, but I was still, I didn't quite know where you stood with all the social media and all that. And I remember being nervous. I think I texted you, would you be interested in doing a podcast about real estate? And you're like, yeah, for sure. So I'm very grateful that you agreed to it. I think it's worked out
Yeah.
well. We've done, I think we've missed only 1 week of regular, and that happened recently. So all of our other up to get up to 75 have been the flipping university, the real estate heavyweight university, which was early on. And then we've had a bunch of interviews, and a lot of those interviews are friends of yours. And so I really, really am grateful for everything you brought to the table and making this podcast
Yeah.
happen and all that stuff. So thank you.
Well, no, thank you. And, you spearheaded this thing. So I joke about it. I just show up and talk. So, but, um, no, it's been a great journey. And, it would be interesting to like go back. It'd be a lot of work, but it would be interesting to go back in and like see if we could pull some of the main highlights, like just little
Yeah.
segments
I'm going to
out
do
of
that.
the
A lot of people
75
do that for
shows.
yeah, a lot of people do that for like a holiday show, kind of
Yeah.
around Thanksgiving, Christmas, sort of a year in review type show. And so I I will definitely do that. It will take a little bit of time to kind of go through and just try to find some things, and I have some ideas for how we could structure the show. A lot of shows actually they'll do one segment that's the same every time, like, hey, tell us
Hmm.
your favorite restaurant in town, or hey, what's the top real estate book you've ever read? And then what they can do is at the end of the year they'll put together a compilation of all their guests talking about their favorite
Yeah.
book or their favorite
Yeah,
restaurant or
that's
something
cool.
like that. So I would like, for us, maybe restaurants. We're not big readers. I'm sure you can read, I can read, but I choose not to a lot of times. But I do choose to go to restaurants. So I think it would be cool to just hear people's take on their favorite parts of town, and the favorite restaurants and stuff like that. So I have ideas on how we could structure things a little differently here and there. We've evolved some in the show, which I think is good. I'm happy
Oh,
with where it is,
you've
but
you've evolved a lot. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have evolved a lot. I've gained like
Yeah.
60 pounds since we started this show.
Well, you're just
I
trying to live up to the name, I
I
think.
took the moniker for real, and yeah, no, I mean my real estate business has been, yeah, I've been able to really expand, and I do think the moniker you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with most or whatever, you know, the fact that you are speaking into my life and teaching about real estate, and I see real things being done and how it's done, and then talking to other people on the podcast, there is something to that. And so I hope to just continue to, here's what I want for you though, too, is I want to find people out there that are aspirational to you that we can get on here. Like
Yeah.
I want you to be able to ask questions that grow your business and grow your mind into the next level too. So hopefully this
Yeah.
next year we can find that and get some of those people on. So
Yeah.
but 1 year, it's a big deal. A lot of podcasts evidently don't get past a few episodes, and the percentage of podcasts that actually post regularly for a year and get to 75, I think, is minimal. Very minimal. So congratulations to you. So tell me about your week. I know we had Aubrey's been slow. I had 2 open houses up there. We actually had a good one on Saturday. We had a few people through, I think a serious couple that it eventually could turn into clients. They
Yeah.
real sweet or older couple from Carrollton. They really like the house, but their timing might be off just for this one specifically. But that was a decent lead. That's the first decent lead I've gotten off of an open house
That's
in
awesome.
a while. So
Yeah.
that was nice. Sunday was a goose egg. We tried again Sunday and didn't have anybody. So how's the activity been since then? Anybody going out and checking it out?
So it's been slow, but we did have one showing. We did have a showing scheduled for yesterday from 11:30 to 12:30. So I gave it some time. I got excited. I was like, all right, good. It only takes one. It only takes one buyer. So,
Yeah.
I told you about the story the first day we went on market, and they had a showing, and you were doing the open house, and
Oh
they
yeah,
never
yeah,
showed up.
right. Yeah, they never
And
showed up.
so it was disappointing, right? It's like you got one, we caught a fish and it got off the line, it never even made it to the boat.
Yeah.
And so um, it's frustrating. Well, I think that happened again yesterday because
Mm,
I didn't see any activity on the Supra, and I've tried not to be annoying about it, but just trying to be efficient to get feedback.
yeah.
And I've called, I've texted, emailed, and not one response, nothing.
I mean, they seem
Hey,
really
how'd your
busy. They
show?
seem like an extremely
Yeah,
busy
how'd your
agent.
showing go today? Just following up with you. Did you make it?
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, absolutely crickets. Like, left her a voicemail, and it's just, come on, man. Just
Yeah.
give me, just respond to a text because you can do that at your own leisure.
Yeah. I
Tell
don't
me you
tip.
didn't
I mean, a
show
lot
it,
of
or
times I don't respond. I
told me
don't
you
respond to
showed
the
it and you
super
don't like
ones,
it.
but like if you specifically texted me or called,
Yeah,
I would for sure
Y-
let you
I
know.
understand on email because you get junk mail, right?
Right.
And like and it's a process. It's not as easy sometimes just to respond to the email. It's like you got to go into the app and then do response. So I completely understand that, but that's usually if somebody takes the effort and calls me, leaves a voicemail, texts me, you know, especially to a text. Like a text
Yeah.
is easy enough to respond at my own leisure and go, "Oh yeah, well, sorry we didn't make it," or "Not a fit," blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But
Doesn't take
too
much.
too far north, whatever. I can understand. Anyways, it's just frustrating. I mean,
This is why we're going to
because
succeed in real estate long term, though, because I feel like more and more people just can't deal with people. They just don't like interaction. They don't like odd conversations in their mind or hard conversations or
it's just
whatever.
weird.
And I just think the longer we go, the less people that can actually do that. And if you're in the realm of you can actually pick up a phone, hold a conversation, say, "Hey, it looked great, just not for us." Like, but people
Yeah,
can't do that. And so I was like, "Hey, good. They will
it's
not
just
last
weird.
long
And of
doing
course, you
that."
can't show your cards. I mean, for me, it's more frustrating because I haven't had much
Yeah.
activity. But
Well,
to
we looked at the
that,
numbers.
I was
You're
going to say,
good.
to that defense, you did help me. Monday morning, kind of run an analysis on it, and um, I'll let you talk about that a little bit, but a little bit of good news with what I got going on. The property in Plano is getting final clean today. It's getting staged tomorrow. It's
Mm,
getting photos on Friday. We're down to the wire. I mean, everybody has been working till after hours each night to kind of try to finish it up. In fact, landscape is being done today. So I woke up in the middle of the night with the storms outside, and I was like, "Oh no, like we got to get landscape done."
Yeah.
Um, so
Soften up the ground for them.
everything's been kind of down to the wire. Which it seemed like we were doing really good on timing. I don't know where things kind of got out of whack last week, but
Yeah. So you got
just a
3
lot of
projects right now. You've got Aubrey, you're about to go to market with Plano, and you just picked up Carrollton, right?
Carrollton. Yes, Carrollton. We closed on about a week ago, a week and a half ago.
Did you
And
ever did you ever hear back? I think last week we were talking about a Garland one.
So Garland one is pending. Well, it's under contract. There's some hiccups with the seller side. Um, it's a power of attorney type deal.
Mm.
Seller's not completely competent. Older person. It's got signs of dementia, things like that. So there's a few challenges that came up on that. We're faithful that it's going to get taken care of. They had a power of attorney, title turned it down. Now they're trying to get a guardianship. So it might take a little longer, but it seems good. I mean, it's a decent deal because it's a home built after 2005. It doesn't have
Okay.
a huge spread in it, but it's Garland. It's
Is that
it's
North
northeast.
Garland? Is
It's
that kind of
northeast
along
Garland.
Georgia?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
by one of my rent houses.
Okay, because we've
Um,
talked about that area before. A
yeah,
newer part of Garland near George Bush.
yeah, good little neighborhood, a little cul-de-sac street that this is on. And anyways, open concept already. Like it's just cosmetic. Like
Yeah,
it's it'll be similar to a renovation like we just did up there at Aubrey, right?
yeah.
So
Well,
very
your
similar to
year
that.
of
Tall
it's
ceilings, things like that.
the idea that and we'll do more of a review towards the end of the year and say, okay, but so far this year, I remember we went to Torchy's, we were talking about goals, and my goals at the time I was still working full time. Some things have changed kind of in my realm of what I was wanting to do, and we're
Yeah,
playing catch up on some financial stuff, and just some things have changed, but you were talking about kind of like, well, I'm gonna shift from wholesale and I'm gonna flip more, which is
yeah,
a cool statement. That you see someone post on some forum somewhere. It's like, I'm gonna start flipping more, and then all of a sudden, you literally, it's like you just sort of flipped this little switch in your car and you move from all electric to jet fuel, and you're like, I'm going to put the gas on, and then now you got 3 or 4 going constantly. So it is
yeah.
really amazing, and you have a great system that you've worked on for a long, long time. So I'm glad
Well,
it's going well.
the good news with that, right? Like in my business, it's relatively easy to flip that switch because the lead generation part, right, which is the base of any of your business, right? Like, I mean, we've talked about that all the time, and the nice thing about in traditional real estate is a lot of times that will work itself over into the investment world because if you're making phone calls and you're talking to people and you're having real estate conversations, investment opportunities come up, through that. The benefit of doing traditional real estate full time is that there's a majority of people just want to do a traditional sale, and that's what
Yeah,
fits them. And the investment route or the uh, the convenience factor isn't always the priority.
yeah,
That being said, it allows you to do traditional business as you have, and opportunities have come up. I mean, in fact, the Keller opportunity was, like a big potential investment deal, which it ended up doing that, but through different research and everything else, you felt going to MLS
yeah,
with it as that opportunity was going to be best, which it was, and it all turned out great. But that being said, with what I'm doing with the lead sources I have, my lead sources have kind of been the same. This year, pretty heavy sphere. I'm starting to get agent leads again. I think that my competition's starting to drop out. I think that it's becoming the fact that I have a long term reputation in the side of the business. People are starting to trust me again, not to deal with just chasing a higher number, and
yeah.
they're going with
You can
who they
close.
feel is going to actually perform. So I think that's helping again. But all that being said, is when I turn the switch on to say, let me flip versus just do the wholesale side, is my leads are the same. So
Yeah.
in the past, the leads were the same, but I chose to go the wholesale side. It really turned that switch on in 2019. Prior to that, I had never really focused too much on wholesaling, but wholesaling has gotten very challenging, and you have to depend on the end user buyer to actually perform,
Yeah.
which I've had a couple bad experiences we've talked about on here with that, and the margins just aren't very good. So it's a matter of like I've got a bird in the hand. The
Yeah.
only thing I had to do was structure myself financially to be able to um, take these properties down and then be able to float the reno while I'm pulling draws against the bank and things like that. So it's taken
Yeah.
a little bit of transition to get the ball rolling. We're still kind of working out those kinks, but we've done pretty good. I mean,
Done well, and
it's
you have one private. You brought on a private investor this year, and we'll do a full review, kind of. But yeah, you brought on a private investor. It goes back to your bookkeeping. You have a great relationship with your bank, so it's going well. Why don't we do a little bit of a market update? So we'll talk about the market specifically, by the numbers. Right now, I have a new computer set up here, so I am over at my computer, at my trusty computer. However, it takes me a second to find my stupid
we'll talk about the
scroller.
market, and I'll let you just touch real quick on because we skipped over that, but the
Right.
analysis on the
Yeah,
Auburn.
that's what I was going to say. Let's talk about the analysis on Aubrey. So the days on market right now, we are looking at the average day on market over the entire MLS is 52. Collin County's 49. Denton County, where Aubrey is 44, is what we talked about. So month supply, we are at 4.6 overall, and that is definitely creeping up. I always look back for 10 years, and sure enough, back in July of 2019, it was 4.4. So we have officially hit a 10-year high on our month supply. We don't, let me look and see how many homes for sale we have. I don't think we're still at 41,000. Our peak was at 44 10 years ago, or in 19. So, yeah. So, talking about the market, Tavis called Monday. He's like, hey, I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. I had been doing the open houses over in Aubrey, looking at what's been moving and all that. So, we zoomed out for a 2 mile look. So, this is sort of a lesson in comping, which we've talked about, but value. Typically, when Tavis and now I comp something, we're looking at maybe a half mile out, maybe half mile to a mile out, like property. Obviously, not crossing anything huge, but and so that's how we come up with an initial sort of value. And you had a comp over and luckily this area is a lot of track homes, a lot of similar builds and all that stuff. You found a
Mm-hmm.
comp for 359. So you listed at 350, confident that you'd be good. I had found at one of the open houses, I was just tooling around. I found a recent comp of a sold at 333, which was unrenovated. And that's where I've said, hey, you could get a renovated house for 17 grand more than someone just paid right down the street. They put $50,000 into this house. So that's a conversation I've had with a few people that have come through. Well, we were
Mm-hmm.
looking at the value on this one. We zoomed out 2 miles so what we did on this one is we came at the perspective of we've done before. If I'm a buyer, if I'm a person that just wants this general part of town, this is my general budget, what can I buy? Like who is Tavis's competition? And that for me, that doesn't matter if you cross 380 or if you cross a big road, because most likely from commute standpoint, it's going to be similar. Schools are going to be similar, probably change
Right.
elementary, but you could you can zoom out and just be more of a consumer. Like, hey, I kind of like this part of town. I've got 375,000, 350,000. What can I buy? So we
Mm-hmm.
looked at that and it gave us a lot more data to look a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, you were right on. Whether you're looking at the metric of the actual sale price of 350, that's not setting any neighborhood records. There's other ones that are 360, 370, 340. You're right in the middle there. You're right in the middle on price per square foot, which I know is not everything, but when someone's looking at that, your average, like we looked at the average, it was like 198, you're at 196. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a lot of these metrics. Days on market, I think, were 40. And so you probably just crossed the 2 week mark. So
Yeah, we're
everything is
not
pointing
even two
to,
weeks yet.
yeah,
It'll be 2 weeks
everything's pointing
Saturday. So
to it's
yeah,
normal. You're not some outlier. You
right.
don't have this crazy expensive house for the street because you converted the garage and now you're actually counting a lot more square footage, but you're having to explain weird stuff to people. Like you don't have any of that. Plus your pictures look really good. So I just, I feel like you're in a good position according to the numbers. You just never
Yeah,
know. But I think whenever someone actually starts going through there, what would be really nice, and I mean, we just talked about you can't hound these agents, but it would just be nice to know from these agents, like, hey, I'm just curious, like, totally fine, but
yeah,
why did ours not make the cut? I'm thinking about making, do I need to change something? You've already moved on.
right.
I just want to know how, like, how did we not make
Yeah,
the cut?
just give me something. I mean, the first people just said basically she didn't tell me they never made it, but basically she said, we wrote a offer on another property that we saw. So that essentially told me they never looked at this one. They just went ahead and decided on another one. Most likely, it's because of location, meaning that this property's further out than they wanted to be. Again,
Yeah,
bigger approach. What can I buy for the money? That kind of thing. So we know that we knew that going into this property that was going to be a challenge with some of those things because you get a lot of house for your money, but it is far out there. You got to deal with
yeah,
380. It is a longer commute, but I mean, for $200 a foot, you look at and you're getting 1,800 square feet, and it's updated. And that the original house was built in 2005. And you get all the neighborhood amenities, the
yeah,
pool and the playgrounds and things like that. So,
yeah, for sure.
um, yeah,
What you need
and
is a little video of your neighbors that came by to the open house and said, "Man, this street's great. It's the best street in the neighborhood." We used
right,
to have block parties. Like if people, you could send that to the agent. Like, look, this is a really good neighborhood. It's a really good
yeah,
street. People care about their homes. But their investment's going to be a solid one. So I don't know if you could actually do that, but in general, yeah, we've got a lot of inventory and it's taking longer to sell. Tavis is
yeah.
feeling that. So
So
let's talk about this. According to the market, or in relation to the market, we have a friend, a loyal listener, Rob, and Pastor Rob over in the Louisville area. And he's great because he actually did a flip about a year ago. And I went and checked it out. And now he's doing another flip over in, I think this might be in the Flower Mound area. But he called and left a message. And I'm going to play this and I want to talk about this. This has to do with the market in a way and sort of a flipping theory. So let's go ahead and play this.
Hey, Ashton and Tavis. Hope you're having a great day. Love to get your feedback on scenario. I mean, I just picked up a flip. I'm trying to consider my exit strategies on timing. Trying to decide if either with the market right now, with the rates kind of turning down, but we're kind of coming to the last quarter of the year, almost into the winter months when typically, sales go slower until you get to the spring and summer months. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Should I either not put much money into the reno and try to turn it right now and see what I can get out of it? B, do moderate renovations of fresh paint, scrape popcorn, and maybe do some minimal renovation and put it on the market quick. And if it doesn't sell, at a decent amount, pull it off the market and then buy some time until like March, April to do a full renovation and put it back on the market with adjustments and see if the buyers are more jumping in the market. So love your advice on that. Turn it over to you guys. Thank you so much.
So I thought that was a great question where he's basically, he got a good deal on something. He's excited about flipping, but how should we go about? Is it worth renting something out for 6 months or 4 months and then trying to time the market to put it back on the market for sale? So right now we're talking about the market being, you got a lot of inventory, days on market are slower. So I mean, I know you're actively flipping, but you've got a little bit more of a system in place. You know exactly what you're doing. This is his second flip. So what do you think for Rob?
well, I think it goes back down to, I mean, just kind of looking at what your strategy is from the get go, right? From your analysis on how you bought it, what your projections are, and kind of honing in on that a little bit. As we're talking through comps a little bit, the tricky part is we've gone through, these inventory levels have picked up. So in the past, in the last couple of years, 90-day window gave us a really good indicator of what the market was doing. So if we look past 90 days, it really told us like, oh, if we follow that strategy on that house, apples to apples, like boom, there's our sold, right? Now it's gotten a little trickier, and now we're looking at comps that are bleeding into 180 days away, like the March and the April stuff, and those are a little harder to gauge because the market has shifted a little bit. Even though rates were higher back then, it's just kind of hard to tell with what the activity is. As we just talked about with the property in Aubrey, one of our best comps was listed at 350, sold in 7 days for over asking. I ended up selling for 359 back in March, right? March or April. So that was one of my comps going into this property. We closed it back in July, and anyway, so it's just tricky right now because using that last data is really hard to kind of gauge it. Now, that being said, time is money. So the longer you keep a property, the more money you're spending, depending on if you're 100% cash or not. But it still depends on how long you're holding that property for. You're going to have utilities. You're going to have different things that cost you money if you hold the property for 6 months. So
yeah, and I mean, I don't remember. I don't. We'll have to ask him on if he's hard money and he's at 11% or something. Plus, he has the wear and tear on stuff, and
yeah. And a lot of hard money loans they're calling them due at 6 months. So
I don't know that they would even
back.
let you rent. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, the big X factor is your servicing cost. If you could rent it out, in theory, break even, maybe even lose $200 a month, but break even, you feel like you're going into the spring, and you could really put it on in a hotter market. Maybe the interest rate environment's better. Like, you might could come out ahead,
The biggest issue that we have is there is no crystal ball in real estate.
Yeah.
Right. Like if your strategy is to hold the property long term and sell it down the road, you're going to turn it into a rental in the meantime because that the market's eventually going to go up. You have to think about it bigger. It's not going to be 6 months. It's going to be annualized return of what you're thinking about. It's going to increase year over year. Or, like the property we picked up in the Colony. We know that everything going on in the Colony, it's landlocked. It's gonna go up. There's no way for it to do anything else but go up. It's landlocked. Everything around the Colony is super expensive. So there's a lot of benefactors that go into holding on to a property in a place like the Colony.
Yeah, for sure.
Flower Mound's a good area. I mean, I have no reservations about Flower Mound at all. Great schools, a very strong market, has been statistically pretty strong. So I don't have any issues there. I think that you just have to analyze it and stick to the plan. And as far as
I guess you could look at it too from like a month, like a annual. Let's say you looked at it from like an annualized return, and let's say he could turn it and sell it in December, and let's for whatever reason sell it for. He's going to net 15 grand, but then all things considered, he zeroes out for rent. He can sell it, let's say early spring. What are you going to make? Like an extra 10, 15 grand? I mean, it's not like all of a sudden it's going to be worth. It's worth what it's worth,
But again, we don't know. That's the biggest thing. Is I go back. We don't have a crystal ball. So,
but I kind of think you do it now. Like if you made money now, and then he could still pick one up. Let's say he could turn it October, November, December.
Well, that's my point.
Pick up another one.
You need to work with what you got, right? So if you got the property, I don't agree with a half-ass strategy, right? Pardon my.
Sorry,
language,
Pastor Rob. Oh my gosh, Tavis, you're talking to a pastor right now, and it's a kids show. Here we go.
Don't pull back. I mean, don't overdo it, but don't pull back, right? Like, and here's the other thing: study the comp. So you mentioned scraping the ceilings. A lot of people don't like popcorn ceilings, but if you look at the other properties that are being sold, and they had popcorn they had popcorn or acoustic ceilings, leave the acoustic. You know, it's not going to make that big of a difference, and it's going to cost you $3,000 to do it. You know, so something like that is one of those cosmetic things that personally, if you're moving into it, or if you're trying to push value, or there's other comps that have had it done that got a little bump out of the market, then yes. But if it's a situation where you just despise having acoustic ceilings and you feel like it needs to be done, you know, like I said, that's $3,000. So that could be allocated in different things that need to be done. So I think that you have to go back to the basics of kitchens and bathrooms sell houses. So kitchen and master bath, those are the big indicators, right? Or primary bath, as people call it, that people are going to focus on. And then any deferred maintenance. You got a fence issue, it's got deferred maintenance. You got landscape that's got deferred maintenance. Roofs right now are a big thing that are being flagged on inspections. Electrical panels are being flagged on inspections. You need to make sure that you're aligning for that. So those big factors that are going to come up on inspections need to be addressed. And then the cosmetic factors that are going to capture somebody, or somebody's going to remember, or it's a challenge for that person to buy the property and then look at updating those things themselves. So if you take that challenge away and you're able to price the property in a, you know, comparable, like as Ashton said before, running the numbers on the property up in Aubrey, we're not at the highest level. We're kind of right in the middle. We're fitting snugly, but we've already done a lot of the updates that the other homes in the competition don't have. Yeah. One thing you didn't talk about too much was the new builds, which are just a little bit more expensive, and we're competing against that. But we've done the updates that are already in those new builds. The difference is we're in an established neighborhood with new trees, etc. So, you know, that can play a fact, but I'm not over that. I'm actually under that value. So I know there's a lot to be had in this conversation regarding that, but I would say no. I think sitting on it and waiting, unless you're on the fence of truly trying to hold this as a buy and hold long-term investment. If it's truly going to be a flip, or then go through the motions, get it done, get it on the market. It really doesn't matter. I've sold properties year round, every month of the year for the last, 17, 18 years, or however long I've been doing this now. So it really doesn't matter. I mean, yes, we have cycles in the market. We have times that are up and down statistically of where the activity is, but I've sold properties in every single month of the year. So
you heard it here, Rob. He's guaranteeing you're going to make a profit no matter when you list your house. So, no, I think it's a great question.
Where's that disclosure?
Yeah, I think that's good insight. But good question, Rob. Thank you for that. All right, let's talk about a little bit of news. This news actually has something to do with the market. Would you believe it that a town that I just sold a house in, Princeton, Texas, made news last week because the city council voted 6-0 to put a moratorium on building. No more building permits in Princeton for 120 days. Oddly, they did say that they would entertain this on a case-by-case basis, which to me seems absolutely ripe for corruption. Like, hey, by the way, can I go ahead and start? I'll be there tomorrow. But yeah, they said there's a moratorium for 120 days. So basically,
interesting.
Collin County is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. Princeton is one of the fastest growing towns in that county. What this article said in the Dallas Morning News was they've basically far exceeded any projections that they had. Not just, basically in the whole infrastructure, the streets, the schools are being overrun. The plumbing, they actually have an infrastructure for a certain number of plumbing outlets that they can start, and they're bumping up against what they had said, hey, we can handle this. So they're busting at the seams from an infrastructure standpoint, like an actual real city. Police officers.
So they're
way short on police officers.
They're trying to get through what they currently have permits for.
Yeah.
right? Which could
Basically.
be a year out,
Sure.
on those
Yeah. They're not
properties to
making
be
people
completed.
stop. Yeah.
But as far as accepting any new permits, they're saying
Correct.
let's pause for 4 months and
Yep.
let's give us some time to catch up.
And they said they could extend that, but that time period they're going to use to just look at their, what they, their tax base, what they can build out. I mean, but obviously they can't go widen streets in 4 months. They can't create a new water treatment plant or whatever, but I think this will at least give them an idea of what they might be able to do. And so, but yeah, really interesting because I just sold a house up there and it was a Lennar, like a huge Lennar neighborhood, Bridgewater. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'm confident they're still building. And I mean, you go out there and that's a part of town where you turn a corner and you'll see 6 signs in an intersection for different new builds, turn left, turn right, go straight, all these new builds, different builders are all over the place. So that will really actually, I'm sure, greatly impact what's going on over there. So I just thought that was interesting. Another article was about our friend Jeff Chaney was in the news up in Frisco. There's a place called Firefly Park. I had never heard, but I guess it's at the corner of 380 and the Tollway at this huge just intersection of development. And they've had it since 2015, maybe, this land. Before the PGA decided to go in there, before Universal went in there, they basically made a gamble on this 200-acre lot of land.
Mm-hmm.
I think 217 maybe. And they gambled and it's paying off huge. The interesting part about that property, though, is it's 45 acres of the 217 is in a floodplain. And so the very first thing that the city made them do, and I sat in on a thing with the mayor one time where he alluded to this with the PGA and Omni and all that. They brought a site plan to the table and they said, this isn't good enough. You have to work harder on this. So they kind of worked. He approached one of the most well-known landscape architects out of New York. And they put a ton of effort into this what's going to be a 45-acre park. And so they used the floodplain as a park concept. And so it's going to be a huge 45-acre park in the middle of Frisco. And I guess they've started breaking ground on that. And my thought was, man, this is, I'm sure, a huge gamble. Even back in 2015, that land was plenty expensive. So to be able to just sit on something that long, and then now they're spending like $25 million on infrastructure just to get going with the first phase of condos that's going to sell like $1.5 million condos. But like that's just such a long play game. That's just such a weird world of financing
and you think about it from that perspective, right? I mean, the city's investing $25 million on a park that's going to be free. That's not going to cost you anything. They're not going to generate income from there. The only thing they are going to generate income is the housing and the developments that are built around this park, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, which could be very beneficial if you think about the amount of units and taxes that are going to come in off that.
For sure. Well, and the city, I don't know how all this works, but they said the city EDC, the Economic Development Committee or Commission or whatever, the EDC actually owns, I think, 67 or 69 acres right through there. So the city of Frisco, I think, bought a lot of land in there at one point, and they're sitting on that. So they stand to make, untold millions selling that at some point or developing. But man, again, I would love to talk to a city planner or Mayor Chaney up there, a real estate guy, because they've just done so many interesting things between this and now the Omni, and they've got University of North Texas is doing a huge development up there. You've got Universal Studio, Universal Studios is doing their kids thing up there, and you got the Star, which Jerry Jones took his practice facility from Irving over to the Frisco. They've got the Toyota Stadium there. Like they have huge developments in town, and so to think, let's say 20 years ago, I would say almost every peripheral town of Dallas had some opportunity to do something similar to this. They could have brought all these entities in and built all these things, but somehow they have this whole synergy going, and it's just fascinating. And we, it's right in our back porch, and we get to kind of see it and enjoy some of the amenities. So definitely super cool. And so okay, we'll talk the thing you wanted to do last time, which I think is a good idea. We're going to talk about a few interesting listings. Did you get the link I sent you? I sent you a one home link with some homes. And but while you're looking at your email, there was one that did make the news. It's out on Cedar Creek, because we went down to Cedar Creek recently. We actually looked at a potential flip with a buddy, and that house was a freaking disaster out there. That one that we looked at with Ryan, and
Yeah.
I think we probably talked about it on the podcast, but you walk downstairs into an area that was probably open at one point, but they decided to close it in, because lake houses are sloped down towards the lake. And so they have these almost like, cake wedge shaped rooms where the big windows and they get narrow back. But when we walk down, we're there to look at it as far as the flip goes. And they have just huge fans, like the commercial grade fans blowing across the floor constantly. It looks like this is just a permanent fixture of that house, that there's so much moisture down there that they have to have fans going, which is, I was like, that was the first really bad sign of that house. But then we couldn't figure out, like,
the sheetrock on the first floor was cut up,
up
like
6 inches or 8 inches.
It was cut up like 18 inches all around the bottom. Like, okay.
I'm okay
I mean, it was an investment.
But...
It was an investment home, so it wasn't like it was retail. But
right. But the problem is we couldn't actually figure out why it was the way it was. That was the whole issue. It's not that you can't fix that stuff.
Yeah.
It's that it was a systemic problem.
What's causing it, and how do you fix it? And then
no one knew.
And then towards the end, I determined that I believe that the house was originally built on stilts to allow for the flooding, right?
Yeah.
And then
a
somebody
fourth
got
grader
the bright idea
and did some stuff.
Yeah, somebody got the bright idea that they would come in and add a basement, essentially,
naturally,
underneath the existing structure of the home that was floating, and you can't do that. Because where they added that wall up against the dirt as a new retaining wall after the upper second floor or the first floor was built, there was no way to seal it, and they did a terrible job. And so every time it rains or whatever, based on the slope of the lot, water was filling up inside.
You get a water feature.
The fact that they had a sump pump in the foundation of the bottom floor. Yeah.
No,
There's a problem with water there,
and that's also the problem of lake building, because
and
the
they were
zoning and the
square footage.
Yeah, they were considering that for square footage, but there's not near as much zoning or inspections out by the lake, and so it's just whoever uncle and cousin and best friend can get over there with a rented a couple cases of beer and some rented equipment from Home Depot, and you're like, let's go. So I sent you in our segment that we'll try to bring to, I sent you a link. Were you able to pull up any of those? So I basically looked at some of the crazier houses that we have on the MLS, and in the process, I did not know this, but McKinney, there is a house for sale up in McKinney. Beautiful house. It's for sale for $2.8 million. It is an 1895 house. I just had no idea that McKinney had that going on. But check out 5590 North 40 Place. 5590, that one, because this house is crazy. Because you're a car guy. Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong one. That's actually a modern looking house. I like that one. But the entrance of that one and the this other one that I was like, who has this in Dallas?
Which one is it?
Well,
5590.
That's the modern one. That's a really cool modern one. I'll link that one. There's two here on McKinney. There's a 1921 house in McKinney that I'll link. I'll put all of this in the. The podcast.
Okay.
But I've messed this up now. Our new segment is not going well. But basically, this house, it is like a $3 million house, and it has this car garage, and it's like a 1950s themed, and they've spent so much money on that. And I'm like, what do you have to, like, there's no way that they're going to get their money out of that. But obviously it's, it's worth it for them to spend. I mean, they had to have spent, I would say, millions making the property, the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
Well, there's one at Van Alstyne has a bunch of cars and
the
lifts
Van
too,
Alstyne
but
one's kind of a nice modern one though. And that, like,
yeah.
this is the nice way to do it. Like, they've got the Van Alstyne one's beautiful. I would live there. It's got the sauna. But what's the reason I put that one on there? First of all, that's 50 acres.
It's only a cool 6.1 million.
Yeah. Now,
but it does have a lot of land. So
it's 50 acres. But here's what's nuts about that house. This is why I put it on there. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is a barn dominium. It's a $6 million. It's a $6 million listing that is a barn dominium. And I'm like, that is crazy.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. So obviously now you're paying for the 50 acres.
Okay. It's the Paradise Ranch Trail.
There it is.
That's got the crazy
in McKinney. Okay. Yeah.
50s themed garage.
I'll put this link.
Like an
so
old
it's
50s garage. Wow.
But see, you look in the front
the
though,
car
like
collection. Holy cow.
Yeah. But in the front living room, you have the Tuscan mural on the wall will for sure be painted over by anyone who comes in.
Yeah.
It's just the whole house.
The late 2000s. This is what style was in back then. And this was the dream home in the late 2000s.
Well, right? It's got an indoor
old
pool.
World Tuscan feel.
You see the indoor pool? You don't ever see an indoor pool here. It's got such polarizing stuff. It's got that indoor pool. And then you do have this sort of man cave thing. That
is a sweet pool.
And the indoor one?
It looks like it. I don't know if it's got a retractable roof on it or what, but
yeah.
It is.
But then you've got the indoor pool, you've got a really legit theater, you've got the gym, of course, but then you have this weird workshop that has all these guitars in it, really nice guitars. And next to that, you have this 50s diner bar. And then you've got a garage that looks like it has 10 cars in it, like classic cars. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it says 20 plus car showroom built out of a 100-year-old barn. Wow. So anyway, like 5.9 million, 2115 Paradise Ranch. They are having a broker's open this weekend, but that's the type of house that's like, man, you're looking for such a specific buyer. I'm guessing maybe you find someone who wants the space for the cars, but I guess if you're walking in with 5.9 million, you might be able to put $1 million into a reno and, like make it exactly what you want. But obviously this person was not thinking about resale whenever they went with the all out Tuscan theme inside, indoor pool, which I'm sure has its own issues. And then you have your man cave, 20 car garage,
a split window Corvette, 63 split window.
He's got some sweet cars. That is no joke. Turns out when you have a $6 million house like that, you can afford some pretty cool cars.
Yeah. He's even got a horse barn.
Yeah. We'll have to, maybe you could pretend to be the serious buyer and I can take you out there and we can check this house out. So, all right. Well, there you go. We'll check out some cool houses. I actually put too many in the cart this time and I was having a hard time finding that one. So, again, cool. Thank you so much for, 75 episodes, 1 year of podcasting. Very proud of that. We have some super loyal listeners. Pastor Rob, sorry about Tavis's potty mouth, just foul mouth.
Hey, we're just talking about donkeys. No big deal.
He'll show up Sunday and repent. But we do have some very loyal listeners, and we so much appreciate a lot of you, our friends, family, and we hear from you a lot. But since this is such a big episode, I do mean it this time. Please tell a friend about us. Please text someone, email someone, post it on social. We'll put out a few posts for this. Try to share it. We'll try to grow a little bit. We've got a lot of good ideas for interviews this next year. We've got some ideas for video that we're going to do. We want to keep it going. But that being said, if you will not offend us, if you will reach out and say, hey, I really like it when y'all do this, or not my favorite when you do this. We've gone through several of those phases. So we always want to hear a little bit of feedback, and we'll try to do our best to edit and filter and do the best we can to make it a show that people enjoy. That being said, go find us on Instagram, find us on YouTube, the Real Estate Heavyweights. Tavis is Travis without the R. Do you remember the first 20 episodes or so? We found it very necessary to say Tavis is Travis without the R. Yeah, it would be funny to go back and listen to some of those early ones and be like,
we have not done that in a while.
So clunky. But yeah, go find Tavis, which is Travis without the R. Tavis Westbrook Designs, and he's on Facebook and on Instagram, and I'm Ashton Hines, Dallas Real Estate Guy on Instagram, and come find me on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you so much for all you've done for us over the last year, all the feedback, all the friendship, all the messages and love that you've given us. We definitely appreciate it. And until next time, have a great day.
Talk soon.